Hi, in this video I wanted to talk about the new masking capabilities in Capture One in the recent update they've just done and show you how I've been using it. So I've always found the masking in Capture One really good, and I think things like their AI mask are maybe undervalued because the way that you can zoom in on a picture and keep highlighting individual sections of the image based on the magnification you are at any particular moment makes it really powerful over and above something that can just look at the image from a whole and say that is an object and that is an object. So that with their magic brush, I think it has made it really flexible. But now they've brought out this update where you can combine masks and add and take away from things like linear gradients. And that expands the capability of their masking system. So I've got a few images in the computer that I wanted to go and show you how I've been using them in sort of utilitarian ways and also in creative ways, because using a linear gradient so much more smooth than maybe brushing sometimes is, and you can get really nice effects with it, and I've been quite excited by it and thought I'd just make a video to show you how I've been using it. So I'll get the images up and show you what I've been doing. So this image I took with my Fujifilm X-T5 and the 10-24 Fujifilm lens, and it was taken in London at Piccadilly Circus at sunset recently, and this girl was running around and there was loads of people, and I just thought it was a cool shot. So I wanted to do some editing on this. So the first thing I was going to do was edit the sky, and as Capture One don't have a bespoke sky selection tool, I use the AI mask, and then if I press M I can see if that missed anywhere and just go around the bits that it missed with the magic brush, which is not really a problem. Maybe one day they will bring in a sky mask tool, because they seem to have lots of other clever AI masking tools coming along now, so maybe that's something they will address at some point. But we still have a little bit there that we can, but this is, you can see it's quite a clever set of tools, and once I've done that, often I will, a little bit down there maybe, refine the mask, because I find that just makes the edge a little bit nicer. And I'll label that sky, and then I can do a few little edits. So if I press M to get rid of that, so maybe just darken down the sky slightly and maybe bring up the black point for a bit more oomph and bring out some of that colour. But I didn't want to darken down the highlights too much because it makes the thing all a bit muddy. So that's where we're going to move to next. So with that, we've still got this center section, which is very, very bright. So I'm going to create another layer, and I'll call that Sky Grad. And that I will then copy the sky mask, and then I will go into the new section, which is combining masks, and I want to intersect the mask that I've just created with a linear gradient. And I select linear gradient and then click on mask, and then I can drag a linear gradient up. So if I now hit the M key, you can see it's only affecting that pink area in the middle of the shot. So that's done a lot of the heavy lifting for me, and then I can take down the highlights and maybe a bit of the whites there, and even maybe add a bit of contrast. But I mean, that's reduced the blown out area. There probably is blown out area in this because I was obviously taking it directly into the sun and being slightly mindful of all the other bits in the image. So yeah, that was quite nice. So if I click that on and off, we've brought back a lot of the sky. Maybe I can reduce the saturation so it blends in slightly better. But we haven't affected our other edits, and obviously I'm going through this quite quickly for the purposes of this demonstration. Then the next thing, I wanted to edit the rest of the picture, not the sky. So I've created another layer, and I'm going to select the sky mask again, and then I'm going to invert that mask. So if I hit M, you can see that's just operating on everything but the sky. So we can call that ground. And what I wanted to do with that is maybe brighten it up a tad in the sort of mid area, so that these buildings stand out a little more. But I'm aware that I'm sort of blowing out the ground here a little bit. So if I bring down my highlights a tad, that's quite nice. Maybe even a bit more contrast, which would add a bit more sort of punchiness to there. Where have we got to? Yeah, that's quite nice. And then to bring back some of the atmosphere that I feel that has lost and to focus ourselves on the middle, I thought I would create another layer and take the mask from the ground, and I'm going to call this vignette. I mean, it's not a total vignette because what I wanted to do here is to darken it down, maybe bring up the black point so we really disappear into darkness. But then I wanted to intersect this with a radial mask, a radial gradient. And on Capture One, as you know, the radial gradients apply the mask to the outside of the gradient. So that's why I've used intersect as opposed to subtract. So now I'm going to create this mask, and it's stopped showing me the effect. And then when I create this radial gradient, you can see it keeps it at the edges. It's not affecting the sky at all. It's just affecting the middle bit. So that gives us that focus on the outside. So then if I show you the mask, so it's only acting on those areas, and I can do more of it and make more of a focus in the center. So that's how I can use the new combining masks to really pinpoint exactly what masks I want to use again. So that's the little one in the middle, and that's the one around the edges. So we went from that to that. So this image is a very flat image that I went up to photograph some stuff around Surrey, and the weather wasn't very nice really. So I thought I'd have some fun with the new combined masks, or see if they could become a little bit more creative. And so I created a sky mask to darken down the sky using the AI mask, and I'll just fill various bits in. This time I'm going to use the sample entire photo, and I'm going to click there to try and fill in the bits around the trees, and that's done quite a good job there. Bit over there, and just a bit up on this tower. And it's even filled in behind that window. That's quite cool. So there we go. We've got quite a nice mask. I might just refine that tiny bit just to help things along. So there we go. There's the sky. And if we create another mask and say copy from sky, and then we will invert that mask so that then affects everything but the sky. I wanted to create some sunshine, and I thought I'd use some gradient filters to try and do that. So at the moment that is affecting the whole image. So I want it just to affect, I was thinking this side of this tower here. So I thought I'd go and combine and make an intersecting mask with the linear gradient and only apply it to this edge of this tower. So that's what we get there now. And I might bring this over here so it's quite strong, and I'm pressing the M key to show my mask here. We can even move that a little bit back again so that that sort of blends away nicely. And you could do all this with brushes, I guess, but it's just much more tricky. And so if I then add a bit of exposure to that and warm that up a bit, quite a lot, maybe even go down here and dive into the oranges and push those up a little bit more. So now that is really nice on the building, and I probably don't want it on the rest of this ground here, but maybe a sliver. So next I want to subtract some of this from down here. So I am going to combine this with the radial gradient, and normally the radial gradient selects the areas outside. So I'm going to choose intersect and click the mask. Yeah, that's quite good. And then I can move this to try and give me a sense that the sun is just on this little bit of ground in front, but not so much in the sky and over there. Then we've got this quite nice sunshine coming in from the right. And of course you can do another combined mask and use so we could subtract and take a brush and do that, and then we size this brush down a little bit, and maybe we want to take a bit of this away here, just so that it feels like there's a shaft of sunlight from a little gap in the clouds. And then I was thinking, if that's coming from here, maybe it would just a tiny bit catch the edge of this building. So let's create a new layer and select the building by the AI masking tool. And then we can do the old warming up thing again. But I know that looks horrible, but don't worry yet. You can worry in a minute, but not yet. So then if we then do the combine intersect with another linear gradient, then I can just put a tiny little bit on this back edge maybe. We can feather that just so that maybe the sun was there and then a bit of shadow there. But the great thing about these new gradients and things is they're still movable. So if I decide that I wanted it to go further, you know, I could still sort of fine tune it, or I wanted it just to hit that, you know, be more defined on this edge. And before we had to rasterize layers if we wanted to adapt them like this. So that's looking quite nice. Maybe we want a little bit more brightness in this sunshiny bit. So just as a sort of starting to be more creative with things, if one wanted to try and make more of this image than the original flat, if I take these edits off, you can see we've added some sort of dynamics. Whether you think they are perfect or not, I don't know, but there was just a sort of quick playing around with the flexibility that the new combined masks give us. So that was trying to add some sunshine on various areas of this tower. So here's another image that I thought it'd be fun to play around and try and get some more sort of dynamics to it. It was in Covent Garden, this girl doing her, whatever it is, puzzle book whilst waiting for people to come and buy things. So I made an AI mask that selected her and bumped up the brightness and added some warmth to her. And then I wanted to use the combined masks and only affect one side, as though we're going to amplify the light in the image. So after selecting this layer, I can go to the combined masks, select intersect and linear gradient and click create mask. And that has made the mask disappear, and then it will come back only in the areas that I specify. And using the gradient mask, I've just put the light sort of coming in over her back there, just as though the light's all coming from the right hand side of the picture. So that looks quite nice, and we can warm that up so it makes it look a bit like sunlight. Then I've added another layer and subtracted the AI mask of the girl and wanted to create this as sort of darkness. And I'm going to do another combined mask, and I'm going to do an intersect again and a linear gradient again. And I'm going to click create mask, and that will disappear. And then I'm going to pull that from the left hand side of the picture, because that's the bit I want dark, knowing that I can go past this subject of the picture. She won't be affected, but it looks like the darkness goes away into the back of the picture, which is quite nice and gives it a little bit more depth. So it's all going on here with these people, and we've created this depth. And if you watch the girl who's the figure of the thing, she's not being affected by that, and she has the sunlight on her back, which is looking good. So if we look at the original image, that's what it was like before, and that's what it's like now. It's just slightly more interesting. And then we can go on to add more processing if we wish. So I've added a preset of mine, which is obviously a bit too extreme, so we can just bring in a little bit of more of that if we wished. And then finally, I didn't know whether I was losing the subject slightly, so I made another mask that just selected her and added in a tiny bit more brightening just to sort of bring her out of the background. Maybe we could go back to our linear gradient and move it across a little bit. This is just an experiment to give you an idea of how you might use these things, not necessarily in ways that you have thought of. So in sort of trying to make something, use it as a creative tool and add more dynamism to a picture. So that was the original picture. And now we've got this picture. Maybe I'll add a vignette to the whole thing. And it's sort of quite nice then. You get that feel that you've come from just a basic shot and you've just a bit more of a dynamic picture and a bit more going on. So in this example in London, I was just standing in the street and this guy just roared up in his motorbike and he was just sort of manoeuvring around to reverse back. So I took this picture of him and obviously he's a bit underexposed and the background is okay. So I wanted to see whether we can utilize some of the masking and combined masking to get the picture looking a little more dynamic and stuff. So I'm going to create an AI mask and drag around this motorcyclist. So let's just see what happens if we just globally brighten this guy up a bit, which is nice. That's all good. I might warm him up a bit because the background seems quite nice and warm and he's in the shadows, so it'd be nice to make it feel like he wasn't. And then here's where I think there could be, so if we call this biker, and then if we make another layer and copy the biker mask, and then biker grad or something, and then I'm going to use a combined mask and intersect with the linear gradient again, and I'm going to click create mask and pull that up from the bottom because it looks a bit darker down there. And for the purposes of this experiment, that's what I'm going to do, and bring up the bottom half a bit too much there probably. I just wanted to make all the sort of shiny bits sing in the light. And there you go. So it hasn't affected the rider and up here, but just the bottom area. So that's quite nice. Maybe this front tire is a bit too bright now. So what if I were to add a second gradient, and I will subtract it from the front wheel a little bit. And of course you can move these around till they do what you want them to do, which is nice. So there, yes, so there we go. And maybe we add even more sort of warmth to that to keep the colour consistency going. And that looks okay. I don't know whether at the back of this wheel it looks a bit fake, so I might just grab a brush again and do the combined mask and subtract with a brush and create a brush and make it smaller with maybe less flow and a little bit smaller. Just go around the edge of this wheel to make it sort of look less like I've got some mask on there. That looks a bit better, more realistic, more believable. And then maybe we can create a new filled layer, and I think I'll just whack like a nice something on there like that. Let's add that and dial it back a bit. And that's all looking quite nice and quite believable. And again, these combined masks have helped me with a few problems that I might have solved with brushing, but it's always nice and smooth with the gradient mask. So that's where we started and that's where we ended up. And yeah, using the, and it's quite a complex mask on here. So if we actually look at what we've masked, you can see, you know, it's quite a complex mask, which is easily attainable now in Capture One. I hope you found this video interesting and informative, and it helps you understand a bit more of what this new update in terms of masking can do for you. And it hopes it also gives you some creative ideas of how you might use it in your own images. And if you want to ask any questions about this or any other Capture One related questions, put them down in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them if I can. And thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again here soon.